Good evening, everybody. My name's Fiona McPherson, and I'll be hosting this evening's event. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the Open University to our webinar on how to use LinkedIn. Just before we start, I'd like you just to familiarise yourself with WebEx if you've not used it before. I know some of you have actually attended some of our webinars in the past, but for those of you that haven't, we're just going to have a quick navigation session just so that you can familiarise yourself with everything. So, first of all, as you'll see on the main part of the screen, it actually displays any content such as presentations, which we currently have up there, and websites and things, as Jane will be showing you some live content using her web browser later on, so that's where you'll actually see that content. At the top of your screen, you'll also see an audio broadcast box, and this is where you can adjust the volume, so if it's a bit quiet, obviously turn your volume up, etc., or turn it back down again. On the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see two tabs. There's the Participant tab and the Q&A tab. You'll be using these during the webinar, so we're just going to have a quick practice just so you can actually familiarise yourself with them. So first of all, if you select the Participant panel, if you've not already done so, and then go down to the bottom, and first of all, click on the Show Hand icon. So if you want to do that, that's brilliant. So there's quite a few of you doing that. That's really good. So that's how, if Jane asks for a show of hands on a particular subject, then you will actually just use that, and then we can actually see that. So great, you're obviously all being able to use that. Lovely. Okay. Just for quick practice regarding the Q&A sessions, if you can click on the tick icon, which is just next to the hand, and you'll see a selection there. I want you to answer the following question with either a yes or a no. So the question is, are you already on LinkedIn? So if you just want to select either yes or no. Can you see that tick box? Doesn't look like anybody can at the moment. If you go, you'll see there's a little tick, and if you click on the feedback button, you will see it's got a selection of yes or no. Brilliant. Okay, there's quite a lot coming back up there, so that's really useful. So that's how you would actually answer any closed questions that Jane might ask during the session. Now we're going to look at the Q&A panel. We've allowed 20 minutes at the end of the webinar for the question and answer session, where you'll have the opportunity to ask questions using this panel. To send a question, all you need to do is select Host from the Ask drop-down menu, type in your question, and then click on Send, and we'll answer as many as we can. So just for a quick practice, if you want to select Host from the Ask menu, and then just type whereabouts you are in the country today, and obviously if you're in a different country, if you can just let us know where you are, and click on Send. Okay, we've got quite a few coming through. We've got Natalie, who's in Oxfordshire, Jill, who's in North Hertfordshire. We've got Candida in Rome, which sounds more glamorous, really. Ted's in Buckinghamshire, John's in Burwash, Virginia's in Brussels, Jane Pollard's in Italy, and Emilio's in Spain, in Madrid, and Emma's in Surrey. So that really just gives you a feel for how you would actually submit a question. And obviously, if you have any sort of direct questions that you want to ask that aren't related to the webinar, if you want to send those through, then I will reply back. But as I say, we will actually be handling the Q&A questions at the end, unless there's anything particular that Jane or I pick up during the session that I think Jane might need to answer. So at the end of this evening's webinar, we have a feedback form which will pop up on your screen when it actually finishes. And we would appreciate you completing it, which just gives us feedback on how you felt the webinar went. But also there's a list there of subjects that we're considering for future events, and it would be really useful to get your feedback on which ones you're particularly interested in. So now I'd like to introduce you to our presenter, Jane Barrett. Jane is the founder of WorkMaze Limited, which is a career coaching and information company. She set up WorkMaze in 1999 and has since helped hundreds of people develop their careers, from managing directors to MBA students. She's a qualified CCS counsellor and is also qualified to administer Myers-Briggs type indicator personality inventories. Jane regularly works with Europe's leading business schools, running career development workshops, and in June 2010, she co-authored the book, If Not Now, When? How to Take Charge of Your Career. So now I'm going to pass you over to Jane, and hope you all enjoy her presentation, and I look forward to the Q&A session at the end. So I'm just going to pass you over. Just bear with me a second, and I'll pass everything over to Jane, and then she can start for you.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for that introduction, Fiona. I'm delighted to do this webinar on LinkedIn, as it's a tool that I've seen my clients use more and more over the last couple of years. I mean, I've been a career coach for over 12 years now and always advocated networking as a way to find a new job, and for people who are self-employed or in business to find new clients and to find new projects. And I've seen a rapid explosion in the use of this tool to achieve these goals. And so I'm really pleased to be able to present on this, because it's something I'm very passionate about, LinkedIn, and it's a website, I suppose, I wish that I'd dreamt up and founded. So I'm a big fan of LinkedIn, so I want to explain a little bit about how it works and introduce you to it. I'm not going to spend too long on that, because it looks like most of you are on LinkedIn. What I find with a lot of clients at business school is, and in my private practice as well, right up to senior level, is that people often don't have time to think about how they're using LinkedIn to their best advantage, and maybe aren't familiar with some of the features they could be using. And I've recently done some work with quite a lot of executive MBAs, and I've been talking to them about using LinkedIn strategically to manage their career within an organisation. So, you know, LinkedIn isn't just for something to go onto LinkedIn when you need a job or you need something. It's something that is starting to be integrated into people's day-to-day work, and a very useful tool on a day-to-day basis to develop your career within an organisation, develop your career full stop. A lot of the executive MBAs I've worked with actually weren't particularly looking to change jobs, but wanted to raise their profile, wanted to network, and wanted to gain more industry knowledge and be seen more of an expert. And certainly as they've developed their career, it is about profile raising. It is about being known by the right people, and I think also being current. You know, I think a lot of that. I mean, I'm 41, and I've had to embrace technology, because I think, you know, my view is if you don't embrace it, then you're going to get left behind. And whether you like it or not, these types of tools, and particularly LinkedIn, because it's a professional business social media, you need to embrace, else you're just going to get left behind. It's the same as, you know, when computers, laptops came out. You know, you can avoid them all you want, but they are here to stay. And so I think they're an incredibly important tool, and I'm seeing a lot of positive results from it. I'm also seeing quite a lot of mistakes. I've made mistakes myself on LinkedIn, and so we can discuss, you know, some of those issues, because I think there are some issues around LinkedIn and how to use it effectively. We can certainly talk about that tonight. I want to talk a little bit about how recruiters work and how you can use this knowledge to your advantage, about what they're looking for and what are the most important things to make sure you've got on your profile, and how you're using it. Some are quite obvious, but I think, again, it's taking your time out of your busy working day to think, right, have I done this? Have I done that? And actually make an effort to make sure you're using it to its full potential. Now, I'm hoping that you'll go on to LinkedIn after this call today and do a bit of work on making sure that you are using it effectively. And then just, a little bit as we go through about how to find a new job or a new project using LinkedIn, as I suspect that's what most of you are interested in. In the last 2 years that LinkedIn's been going, it's doubled in the number of users. So there's now a huge amount of people on it, and it used to be very US based. And it's really spread now. I do quite a lot of work in Europe and with a lot of students from all around the world, really. And it's really become kind of the major player. There used to be, there are other social media platforms. I personally made a strategic decision just to focus on LinkedIn myself. You may decide to look at other social media platforms. For example, Xing, which is Xing, is very strong in Germany. And so if you were looking to work in Germany, then you perhaps would look to also have a profile on there. I made a decision not to join other networks like Plaxo because I just don't have time, and I would prefer to have a stronger profile on LinkedIn and really use that than spread myself too thin. So that was my strategic decision. Huge amount of new users signing up. And as we've just discussed, if you look on the home page of LinkedIn, there's lots of tests. Quite interesting because there's quite a broad range of the way that people use it. As I said, for career development, for new business development, for making leads, making contacts, and not just when you're looking for a new job. And I think this is, for those of you who aren't looking for a new job, this is the best time to start to work on your LinkedIn profile, really, because it's not so desperate. You can take your time in making sure that you're building up your profile. So it's, if you're looking for a job and people think, oh yeah, I know why you're trying to link to me. So it is nice if you're not looking for a job to start to work on your LinkedIn profile as well. Okay, so recruiters really love LinkedIn, and there is a paid for, you can pay for an added extra level on LinkedIn, and I suspect a lot of people who do pay are professional recruiters, both within companies and also headhunters. And this is because it's like an updated database. I used to recruit for PwC consultants, and we used to have a database, and it was always out of date. just because once it was on the database, then a candidate couldn't update their details without sending us another CV. So what's great about LinkedIn for recruiters is it's constantly updated, but that's down to you to make sure it is updated. And if you look at this little diagram, the worst thing to do when you're looking to recruit someone is just to look through speculative CVs, which have just been sent out like a scattergun, and CVs on a database, as I said, just get out of date very quickly. The next kind of way a company may look to recruit, but isn't kind of top of their list, is to use recruitment agencies. It's expensive. It often costs between kind of 20 and 30% of annual salary. And to do an advertising campaign costs time, costs money. You've got to deal with all the candidates. And in a market which is got a lot of candidates, it can be massively time consuming. So the best way to recruit is the number one way, is to have a targeted approach. So for companies who are approached by candidates who have evidence of what they can do for the company, quite a lot of my clients have approached target companies, and I'm going to show you that search function to be able to search on companies on LinkedIn. So draw up a target list of companies you would really like to work for, and then approach the hiring manager, ideally, and put together a case of why you are you can add value to them. Another good way is to be referred by another employee. A lot of companies operate a bounty system where they will give an employee a bonus for introducing a new employee to the company. You don't often introduce somebody unless you're sure that they're good. We use that a lot in PwC to reduce our headcount costs and to hire good talent through our existing network. And I think that's what's great about LinkedIn, is that this network is far and wide. When you know, as a recruitment manager within a company, if you're linked to all your employees, then you can tap into all their networks. So it makes it a much easier process than perhaps in the past. And then kind of the top way to recruit is to recruit someone you've already seen their work. They've perhaps already worked in your department, so perhaps they're on a contract or they're part-time. And so somebody who is a known quantity. And again, I think this is why LinkedIn's been so successful, is on LinkedIn there is that facility to have a testimonial. And, you know, some people have so many testimonials, and they're, you know, I've noticed, you know, a couple of people who have a testimonial from everybody in their MBA class or everybody in their executive MBA class. But I think good recommendations from people who, from former bosses, people who are quite well known in their industry, are worth their weight in gold, because you don't spend the time writing a recommendation often unless you really think that person is good. So I think, you know, again, you get that nice comfort factor that this person has kind of been recommended. And it's very cost effective for employers, and I think that's the biggest thing I've seen, is that employers are using this more now. A client of mine from Warwick Business School, an alumni, was contacted by McKinsey to do a short-term project piece of work, and he'd been contacted direct through LinkedIn. So I think companies are getting smarter about using LinkedIn to contact people direct. They can cut out recruitment agencies. They can use their networks. There will probably always be a place for recruitment agencies, especially at a higher level, but it does allow companies to go direct to the candidate pool. Referring to a book on LinkedIn, there's a book called Career Management via LinkedIn, and I will type that reference up at the end. And in that it said that this is written by an expert, somebody who uses LinkedIn to recruit. He said that 70% of vacancies are filled by informal contacts. This is by a study in Europe. And employers said that through people were much more satisfied with their job if they'd been recruited by an informal network. I think that's likely because somebody recruited informally through a networking contact probably has a better idea of the company, the type of job they're going for, because it's already semi-known to them by that contact. So many reasons why recruiters absolutely love LinkedIn. As we're going along, by the way, if you have a specific question on anything I'm talking about, then please just type in your question direct to me. If not, we can hold off questions to the end. So so we're seeing hiring managers using LinkedIn, especially in smaller companies where they won't have much of a recruitment budget. Corporate recruiters and HRM staff, so human resources staff, using it. Recruitment agencies, headhunters using it much more. And I'm going to talk through a few inside tips of what recruiters are looking for. So recruitment is a massive part of LinkedIn, and as you'll see on the jobs part of LinkedIn, there's a lot of jobs posted by companies now, and I've seen, certainly in the time that I've been using LinkedIn with clients, I've seen this increase. So the key things to get right on LinkedIn. So we're going to have a look at some, I'm going to share my desktop with you now as we go through some of the key things. So if you can be making a list of things that that you need to perhaps add to on your LinkedIn profile as we go along. So I'm going to share my desktop with you. Please, if you can contact Fiona if this isn't working for you. It should take a couple of minutes for my desktop to come up. Okay. So hopefully you can see this. So Angus is somebody that I'm logged into my profile. I'm not going to go through the basics of setting up a profile, but I'm going to talk you through some of the key things. And a profile is like an online CV, but it's more dynamic than that because you can change it. It's got testimonials. You can see how many people are in this person's network. And it's really, I mean, lots of people now talk about personal branding, and this is incredibly important. It's really worth doing a search on your name. I did a little search before this session on my name, actually, just to see what's out there. And so it is really worth doing a search on your name. I used a site called 123people.com to do a search on my name. I mean, it goes without saying that you do have to be careful about what is out there on you. But people expect to see you on LinkedIn now. I think it's a given that it's no longer. I think there are some doubts certainly in my mind as a career coach and as a recruiter. If somebody's not on LinkedIn, I wonder if they're kind of technically with it, and whether they're really into networking. And there are not many jobs where you don't need to do any networking, even if it's just to stay current and to show your enthusiasm for a sector. So Angus is somebody I worked with, and one of the key things to make sure you've got is a good profile picture. There are some statistics on headshots on LinkedIn, and it said that profiles with photographs are viewed 30% more. And I can see that when I've done searches on LinkedIn for candidates. If they don't have a photograph, you're less likely to look at them. The people with professional photographs stand out really well. Angus, I'm sure he won't mind me telling you, because we used to laugh about it, had a picture of himself in a tracksuit, slouched on the sofa, and he changed it to this profile picture, which is much more city, and he wanted to get into hedge funds at the time, and that's what he managed to do. And LinkedIn was a key way for him to break into this market and reposition himself and brand himself really as a hedge fund specialist. So good profile picture. I'm going to show you someone else as well. For those of you who are consultants and freelance, I think it's can be important to let your personality come through. Sophie's a very successful strategic consultant, and she loves pink. And as you can see, she's in her pink outfit. She's just got a very high-paid role at a massive retailer on a couple of days a week, and she does lots of other consulting work. So she's very successful, and I think one of the key things is that her personality comes through. It's a professional picture, but her personality comes through in this. And what's good about this is her headline, the way she's written her headline, and I think that's incredibly important. So she said, strategic consultant, trusted advisor to startups and multinationals on multi-channel and cross-platform commerce. So immediately you know what she does. So the headline is very important in positioning you, and try and think about what the benefits, so not what your responsibility is, but what you've either achieved or how you can benefit, how you can help. What is it that you do? If I asked you that question, what do you do? If you had to say that back to me in very clear terms, I would suggest that would be a good place to start to write your headline. The next key thing to look at is the summary, and this needs to be it's as important as the first page on your CV. So it needs to be succinct, it needs to sell you, it needs somebody reading this to get a grasp of what your major achievements have been, and what you can do. Also, very important to put your specialities. So you can include things like any language skills you've got, whether you've had experience speaking at conferences, any publications, public appearances, or any outstanding kind of sporting achievements or interests. And be careful also about putting some keywords, because the way recruiters search is to search on keywords. So if you look at Sophie's summary, she's put some keywords in here that might be used by a recruiter or somebody looking for somebody like her. So she's put in, multi-channel, multi-platform solutions, strategy development, e-commerce specialist. These are all kind of good words, keywords that someone might use to search on. Also, check that how many connections you have. It always slightly worries me when I'm looking for people to work with, other career coaches, if they don't have many connections. Well, if they're not on LinkedIn, I just think they're not with the program. They're not at all current, so I wouldn't work with them. But also how many people they were connected to, and how many people had recommended them. I think particularly the connections things, if you've only got, 15 people, it doesn't look like you're particularly well connected, and you're plugged into what's going on. People want to hire people, want to work with people who are passionate in their area and are well networked into what is going on in their field. So important to go back and see who you could connect to, and we'll cover that a little bit later about how to make connections, how to find and invite your connections. Okay. I think what's useful as well on this is to see who Sophie's activity. She's got an activity line, so you can see who she's connecting to. I find this particularly useful for people that I want to build a relationship with. If I see they've connected to someone that I know, or it can help when I see them next time to talk about that. So it's just very, very useful. Make sure you have your contact so people can get hold of you. And recommend and be recommended. It's very, as I said earlier, really important that you have recommendations and that you are making recommendations, especially in the UK, where actually it's become very difficult to get testimonials of people. When you ring up HR, Human Resources now, you will often only get records of how long somebody's been at a company. So recruiters and HR people increasingly are looking at recommendations on LinkedIn. And yes, there is a little bit of a pinch of salt there, but particularly if it's somebody who's well recognised, then that's a really big feather in your cap if you can haul in a great recommendation from somebody. Okay. As you can see, you need to fill in your profile, and ideally make sure that that's 100%. Again, some studies on LinkedIn say that complete profiles, so 100% profiles are viewed 40% more than only ones that are partially completed. There is a function on LinkedIn to be able to upload your CV, and if it's in a standard format, then you can upload your CV onto LinkedIn. And so it needs to give a flavour of the type of work that you do. So Sophie's done some, there's a good amount of information here. She's linked to some of the websites she's been involved in and given a brief overview of the type of work that she's done. I think one thing which was quite interesting on hers is she's done some charity work, but she's made that very clear that that's a voluntary role and not her major role. So you can have a look at this. that is a good profile. Let's have a look at another colleague of mine, Judith. I think people who have a marketing background are often very, very good at this type of thing. Judith has integrated her Twitter into her LinkedIn, so you can follow Judith and you can get updates on her what she's doing, as she's linked it through her LinkedIn profile. Again, good summary of her background, and she's got some good recommendations. One thing I find very useful is when it says on somebody's profile, viewers of this profile also viewed other people, because it can lead you into some very useful kind of networks to get names of other people that might be useful to you. So that's incredibly useful. Also, when you're looking at a contact, look at the recommendations or testimonials, because again, that can give you also other leads for potentially for whatever you're using LinkedIn for. It's a good tool as well. Okay. So another thing that I would strongly recommend you do is to make sure that you've joined relevant groups. Groups on LinkedIn are a big feature and fantastic for gaining knowledge of what's going on in your industry. My husband is a financial planner and recently posted a question on his financial planning, one of his financial planning groups, what recruitment agency should I use to recruit this position? And got some really good answers. So, and had his group, somebody in his group, known that you knew somebody who was looking for that kind of role, they could have introduced someone. So it's really worth being a member of groups that are relevant to what you're doing. I've been quite strategic in the groups I've joined. I did join quite a lot of American groups initially, and I found they weren't particularly relevant to the work I was doing. I don't do very much work in America. It's mainly European. So I've kept my groups to a minimum, because I think it is important to contribute. And personally, I can only contribute to a couple of groups. So mine are less than Judith, but Judith, as you can see, has linked to a lot of groups. But she needs to, because she's in business development, she needs to get as many leads as she can. It shows to somebody who's a recruiter, it shows that you're passionate about what you do, and that you're interested and you're current. Okay. So when you're doing your putting in your current and past achievement, make sure that you put some information about the company, what they do. Very much like a CV, you use action verbs and you're focusing on achievements. Try and be as specific as possible. So you might say you've reduced cost or you've won new business, but what is that? I've reduced cost by 10%. And try and, just like a CV really on your profile, avoid using informal jargon. Okay. I'm just looking at some notes that I've made, as I can't remember everything. Okay, so I'm now going to go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. So, when you're looking at your profile, have a think about what does this say about you. So, one thing to consider is what you're going to do about your connections. On my profile, I've made all my connections private. Because of the type of work I do link to quite a few people. That's how I've decided to use LinkedIn. I only link to people that I've actually met and think will, if they ever ask me to refer them to somebody, then I would feel comfortable doing that. I have varied over the years about how I've done this, but I've decided that that's the way that I want to do it. Another colleague of mine has decided just to link to anyone who wants to link to them, and that's somebody called a Lion networker, and that will, somebody who's happy to link to anyone, an LION networker, and there's a logo that you'll see on somebody who are happy to link to anyone. I prefer only to link to people that I've met, only because if then they ask me to introduce them to another contact, it's quite awkward if I've never actually met them, because then for me the whole of LinkedIn kind of breaks down, really. I don't, the point of it for me is to introduce people that I know to other people that I know. Even if I don't know them that well, I can say I met this person at a conference, they seem to have some good experience, I'd like to put you in touch. So we'll have a little look. Again, I will share my desktop. Oops, sorry. Okay, let's have a look at mine. Okay, so this is my profile. 100% complete. And 10 recommendations. And interestingly, I was approached only a week ago by somebody who was head of talent for Prudential, who'd come across my profile on LinkedIn, who was interested in using me as potentially a speaker for some talent management. They were doing a talent management program. So it does work, and people do contact you out of the blue. So it is worth making sure that you even if you're not actively looking, that your profile's up to date, because you never know what opportunities might come your way. So
Jane, sorry to interrupt. Actually, we can't see your desktop. For some reason, it's not popped up.
Okay, I'm not sure why that is. I'll go back then, because it says on my computer that it is. So, okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was going to show you how to find connections. I mean, one of the things you can do is in settings, you can search, you can input your Outlook and your email, or you can do that from Google Mail. You can search for colleagues within companies you've worked for, classmates, or just invite contacts. I use that quite a lot. If I've met somebody at an event and I've got their business card, then I will send them an invite the next day on LinkedIn. It's just a really good way to stay in touch with them. And I use this as my kind of personal database. One thing I would say about accepting invitations is making sure that you personalize your invitations. I recently had an invite from somebody who was a friend of a friend, and I didn't know who she was at all. And if she'd put on her invite to me, I'm a friend of Barbara's, I'd really like to connect with you, then that would have made it easier for me to decide whether to connect with her. So it was kind of strange to get an invitation out of the blue. And I think it just shows a little bit more that you've taken the time to personalise a LinkedIn invitation. And I know another one of our presenters, Lizzie, who some of you may have heard speak before, she's quite strict on this. She will only accept LinkedIn invitations that have been personalised to her. So I think that's one thing to certainly consider. One great thing about LinkedIn, which unfortunately I can't show you for some reason, is the ability to search on companies and find out people who you know within that company. So if I searched on Google, it would bring up all my first degree contacts, and then it would show me my second and third degree contacts, which are basically the contacts of my first degree contacts. And then I can get to those second degree contacts by going through the people connected to me, which is another reason for trying to work on increasing your network, because it means that your reach is that much further. Where I found it breaks down is if you're trying to get to somebody who is 2 steps away from you, 2 or 3 steps away from you. it's much easier to be able to be introduced to somebody who's just one connection away from you. It's very much like networking, but that is a really good tool for actively searching. And one thing I would like to really make clear is that again and again I've seen job seekers do this, is to contact line managers direct and hiring managers direct, but particularly line managers for kind of short-term assignments. Having worked in HR, often short-term assignments will be dealt with by, the hiring manager and not through HR. And often a line manager will know what's going on, what kind of new business they're looking at bringing in, and so it kind of has their finger on the pulse. Not all HR departments, but a lot of HR departments are very overworked and often can, may not be able to be that proactive in dealing with inquiries. So that's a good tip, to go direct to the line manager. Okay. So I know we're kind of running out of time here, so I'll just move on to LinkedIn for advanced users. So extras for your basic profile. One thing I've seen used successfully has been using things like the Amazon reading list to show what you're really interested in. So Angus Morrison, the person I showed you before, he made sure that he put all his reading up there, and that really helped when he went for interview, because it showed his recruiter how really into this sector he was, and how well read he was, and how knowledgeable he was about that sector. So I think it helps build this picture of you. Anna has got a question. What is the etiquette for refusing to connect? I do not necessarily want to show all my contacts or connect with everyone that invites me. Really good question, Anna. One I've grappled with and my clients grapple with. What I do is I archive that invitation. If you get too many refusals to invites, that means that person can be their account can be frozen after a certain amount of time. So I just archive it. So I don't say I don't know them. I just say I just archive it. And I don't connect to everybody. I especially don't connect to people that I don't think are relevant, that I haven't met. If somebody connects me, like the lady who was a friend of a friend, I emailed her back and said, can you just remind me where I met you? Because I want to use LinkedIn in that way. So they won't get notified that you refuse them, by the way. You know, in about a month's time, they might think, oh, that person never connected to me. But, you know, it's a little bit like Facebook. It doesn't actually tell that person when you deconnect from them or you don't link to them. Okay. In terms of your strategy for LinkedIn, I mean, that's really connected to Anna's question, is how are you going to use LinkedIn? And I think that's the main problem that a lot of people have with LinkedIn, as they know that they're not really using it properly because they've not really thought about their career strategy. And certainly with the executive MBAs I've worked with, so people working within organisations, and some of them were looking for jobs as well, they haven't really thought through, so for those of you looking for jobs, what kind of companies do I want to work for? So that you can actively go out and target the type of companies you want to work for. And, you know, LinkedIn has just this great facility for searching on companies. You can even do it geographically by, you know, you can put 50-mile radius in. You can, very good advanced search for companies. So fantastic for that. And for those of you within an organisation, you know, thinking, okay, what do I want to achieve here? I want to raise my profile. I want to be seen as an expert in this area. So what do I need to do? You know, it's fantastic for organising events. Another way to add extras for your basic profile is to show what events you're going to. And I think that's great, again, for showing that you're current, that you're going to conferences. You know, you might even be speaking at conferences. And these are all competencies that as you get more senior, you need to be showing that you are kind of interested and leading in your field. I know a lot of competencies I see within organisations that at the higher level, it's all about raising your profile, about networking, about being seen as a leader, networking outside your organisation, and finding best practice and bringing it back to your organisation. Okay, another question we've got from Veronica is extras for the profile. You mentioned the Amazon reading list, but there were 3 points on your slide. Do you have any other tips, please? Yes. Making your profile more attractive. Yeah, there are things, Veronica, like slide share. So this really depends on what you're wanting to achieve with LinkedIn. But for example, if you are maybe in sales and marketing and you're launching a new product, or you are sharing information with your network on something that perhaps isn't confidential, that you're doing some research on something, you could share a slide share. I'm wondering if I can just show you this. Fiona, you'll have to jump in if this doesn't connect to LinkedIn.
Okay, don't worry, I'll tell you. Oh, it's showing now. You're okay.
Okay. I'm just going to show someone here who is an expert in... Here we go. He's an expert in using LinkedIn for recruiters. And on his profile, he has put, right down the bottom, so he's put the events he's going to, which again is making your profile more attractive. He's also put a link to his blog, which you can also do, blog, on your newsletter. And he's put a SlideShare presentation in about how do you find the best people. He's done some research into this, which you can go and have a look at. So I think this all adds to his profile, really showing that he's an expert in this area. So that is another way of making your profile more attractive. Okay. And I think also, just interestingly, his headline here is employers, recruiters need branding, training, or sourcing help. Contact me. Let's discuss how I can support you. That's quite salesy, but I think that works quite well. One other tip also that I've come across, and I can just show it to you on my profile that you might want to consider, is when you put on your public profile for LinkedIn, I mean, it's once you've got your profile, your LinkedIn, you think it represents you correctly, then what you might want to do on your public profile is put actually what you do next to your name. So on mine, I've put career coach Jane Barrett. So I can put that on my signature, on my email, and kind of people know what I am. It also helps with Google search results. So if somebody's searching on Jane Barrett, that will apparently, I was reading in Google, this will help bring my results higher up onto the search table. Okay, so let's go back. Okay, so if you can now type in any additional questions you have on LinkedIn. The next webinar we have is Secrets of How to Accelerate Your Career Within Your Organisation, and Antoinette will be looking at that. So let's have any further questions. There must be some questions on LinkedIn. Fiona, are you there?
Yes,
yeah.
I am here.
I mean, Fiona is an expert on LinkedIn and uses LinkedIn a lot, don't you, Fiona, for kind of business development?
And I tend to use it on the other side as opposed to recruiting. It's more from a business development side, and again, using the groups are fantastic opportunities for business, because that's also where, so regarding the groups, although people do post jobs into the job section, people will sometimes just start a discussion in various groups, asking if somebody knows somebody with particular skills. So it's really worth following discussions in groups. But it's a great place just to see opportunities that come up. We've got a couple of questions come through now.
Just before we have that question,
yes, sorry.
I think also just to flag up that, the person who knows about the job that you want to do is the person actually doing that job. So if you're connected to someone doing the job you want to do and they leave and they go somewhere else, then their immediate network is going to know that pretty fast. So that's a good reason to be linked into the type of people that you are doing the job that you want to do, because then you can see when vacancies come up. Sorry, you had some questions.
That's okay. We've got a question from Natalie. She's asked, I presume it's okay to ask for recommendations from people?
Yes, absolutely. Also, there's a feature that when you ask for recommendations, they write you a recommendation. There's a feature within LinkedIn which then asks you to write one for them. I would be careful with that a little bit and allow some time to elapse before you do that, else it looks a bit kind of, well, if you write me one, I'll write you one. And I found with my connections that I know that gets sent automatically. People don't necessarily do it. But yes, absolutely. You can ask people, and you don't, you approve that recommendation, the content before it gets published, because you actually have that, you decide whether it gets published or not onto your profile. But definitely, you need to be proactive. People won't just do it for you. You need to kind of approach them. And I've been approached in the last couple of weeks to write recommendations for suppliers who have done work for me for several years. I was more than happy to write recommendations.
We've got another one from Jill, which is a little bit about what we were just talking about, actually. How do you find new business as a consultant with regards to opportunities? And again, I would say a lot of it really is obviously connecting with the right people, but also connecting with the right groups and participating in discussions. And you will see a lot of discussions that are posted will relate to specific opportunities or requirements that businesses have, because a lot of businesses feel more comfortable if they can go to a trusted group that they're a member of, and they would much rather have somebody or a business recommended to them, I think, rather than just, not going through the yellow pages, but going on Google and trying to find a business that way. I mean, we all like to have sort of word of mouth is the best way of marketing, and essentially that's what LinkedIn does. So I personally think it's a great way of doing it from that point of view. I don't know how. I mean, you use it for business development as well, don't you, really, Jane?
Yeah, no, I do. I think it's it's great for business development, and I use it a lot for that. And actually, I've been surprised at how many people actually reply to you. I mean, I have paid for the link to the next service up, and you can pay per email. It's called email, where you want to contact someone you can't get to via a contact. I mean, the best way to contact someone you don't know is through obviously your network, but if you can't do that, and that sometimes happens, then you can send them an email. And as long as it's kind of relevant of why you're trying to contact them and you're not just trying to sell to them, then I've had a fairly good hit rate response from that. So now I've noticed on LinkedIn you can buy one or you can buy 3 of those email being able to send an email, or you can upgrade your account to have unlimited emails per month at various different price points. I think if you're really into business development and you can dedicate the time, then I think that's something to consider. I mean, I get quite a lot of work through referral, but I wouldn't rule it out using that. I've had fairly good results from that. I'm just going to write up the name of the book. Can everybody, Fiona? Can you see
just
the black
about?
book?
It's yellow.
Yes, I'll just change that.
I think that probably answers Christopher's question there, because he was asking the title of the book.
Okay, yeah.
So hopefully that answers that one. Just moving on, we've got a question from Veronica who asks, for your connections, is there an ideal figure that you feel it would be useful to achieve to show you're networking effectively? That's a hard one, actually.
Yeah, it is.
It continues to grow, doesn't it, as you...
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I'd be surprised if somebody had something, I don't know, 150 to 200. I think you know, they're networking. They're not kind of at the top of their game networking, but they're you know, they're starting. I think where I'm surprised is when it's kind of in, you know, kind of 40, 50. That just doesn't seem like they're trying very hard, or they don't go out very much, or they don't network. They don't go to conferences. You know, I suppose. In this day and age, networking is just so important for managers to be kind of keeping current with what's going on, that I would be surprised if people had under 100 contacts, really. Because often, for those of you who are wanting to change career or change direction, you know, those contacts can often come from people you don't know that well. Because the people you know you well are often in the field you're in, so you have to kind of reach out, you know, to other people. So that's a really difficult question to put a kind of a direct figure on. And, you know, and as we've said, you know, it is better certainly for my strategy has always been to connect to people that I know, but then or I've met. But I meet a lot of people in workshops and have quite long discussions with them, so feel quite comfortable linking to them. But that's not everybody's work. I appreciate that. So, yeah. Okay. I think it really depends. Somebody in business development, I would expect it to be in the kind of, you know, certainly 300 mark, I would imagine. You know, 200, 300 mark, business development, that kind of thing. You would expect it to be up there. But somebody, you know, I don't know, who's in a role where they don't meet lots of people, then I would expect it to be less. Yeah. Okay, I'm just having a smile because Christopher's actually already ordered his book, so he's multitasking. Wow. I didn't even check the spelling. That's amazing. That is amazing. Well, he will be very pleased. I don't know what's going on with this. That's just come up. But it's kind of now doubled up. Anyway. Okay. So yes, I did actually contact him because I read his book and I liked it, and you know, it's very much a step-by-step approach to managing your career. And although it was written in 2010, it's you know, apart from some of the figures that are out of date, it actually is really, really relevant. So I recommend this book to my coaching clients who want a bit more information or want to go through it step. We had. I picked out the key things that I felt you needed to do, and the key things I suppose I feel my clients have needed to do to be successful. Yeah. Okay, we've got a question from Candida. This is probably quite useful for some of the people who are actually currently in different countries. If you're looking to attract different markets and therefore feel it would be helpful to have the information in another language, what would be the best way of going about it? Would you translate your profile into the different languages? Yes, I would. Actually, Jacko, he is, I think he's Danish actually, and he's got a profile. Or maybe he's from, maybe he's Dutch. He's Dutch actually, I think. Interestingly, he's got his profile in Dutch as well. So yes, I would have your profile in a different language. You know, I think it depends on your targets. If you're going for an international company, then you know English is fine. But if you're say you know, you're Spanish, you're only looking in Spain, then you know I would suggest you have a Spanish profile as well. Yeah. Okay. There's a bit more about that. I mean, there's a bit more about that in the book, actually. I mean, most of the people I work with have their profiles in English because they're looking to work for international companies where the main language would be English. Yeah. Okay, we've got a couple of questions left. There's one from Sabina. If a recruiter is searching on a key that results in a large number of results, will the people in the recruiting person's network, first and second degree, be shown in first ahead of others? Will their connections essentially be brought up
ahead of those people that are maybe a second or third degree connection.
Yeah, they would. So, I mean, I think, it's definitely worth trying to make connections with recruiters who recruit in your market so that you're on their radar. And, at a more senior level, it's very much who you know. So, yeah, it's definitely worth trying to get a name so that also those recruiters, so let's say it's FMCG and it's fast-moving consumer goods and they specialise in marketing, they'll often move companies. So it's a really good way to track recruitment consultants in your sector, so in headhunters. And you can you can keep in contact with them, and they'll often post what jobs they're looking for. One thing I didn't say on this webinar, that clearly, I mean, obviously, there is a whole job area on LinkedIn, and you can sign up for a kind of amalgamation of jobs, so you can be sent. I mean, I get sent emails because I'm interested in talent management. I like to see what kind of jobs there are in talent management. Don't worry, Fiona, I'm not going to change career. I'm now telling you all my secrets. But I just find it interesting, honest. But it's great because you get this sent it once a week. And in your settings, you can go where your name is on the top right-hand part of your profile. If you click on that and there's settings, you can adjust that to vary how often you get updates, and you can do that for groups as well. So for my groups, I get everything sent to me every week for all the posts for my group, because I found it quite annoying to have every time somebody made a comment to be emailed in my inbox. So I just make sure I just get that once a week now.
Something else that's quite useful is you can also follow companies as well. So if there are particular companies that you're obviously interested in, do follow those companies, because obviously then you'll get updates on what's actually happening with the companies as well.
And competitors of the companies you want to work for.
Yes.
That's really useful for interview when you go in to meet people or you're going in to talk about a project. And also, that's a good point, Fiona, but also news as well. Make sure you can decide what subjects you're interested in terms of what news feeds. I mean, there's not every single news feed on there, but there are a lot of the main ones are on there, and you can choose, what kind of news you want to be served up to you, which again is good, keeps you current, keeps you on the ball. So this is all good in terms of managing your career.
Okay, we've got one final one, which is just a quickie from Jane, actually, just asking if people making recommendations have to be on LinkedIn themselves, and the answer is yes.
Yeah,
short and simple one, but yes. But I think you can. I'm racking my brain here, but I think you actually can send them a request, but they would still have to sign up to LinkedIn if they're not on there. Yeah. But essentially, yes, they do have to be on LinkedIn themselves. So that really sort of answers that. And that's it. We've got no more questions.
Good. Well, I hope you found that whistle-top tour interesting. As I said, I've picked out the main things I think you need to be aware of. I think a lot of it is about playing around with it yourself. It's about looking at other people's profile. I mean, I've learned a lot from looking at people who clearly use LinkedIn a lot and seeing where I've gone wrong. LinkedIn has a very useful, if you go to edit your profile, it has a very nice little feature that says, how can you improve your profile, and it gives you a checklist of what you haven't done. So that's quite useful. So the main thing is just to make the time to have a look at it and work on it, and have an idea of what you want to use it for, really. Okay, well, good evening, everybody. I hope that we'll see you at Antoinette's session. Let me just go back to the and that's just finally our resources for you. There's various different kind of career resources, and that's a login and password for the website for you to use.
And also, actually, just as a reminder for everybody, if you missed any part of the webinar, you will be able to actually access a recording of it from this website in the next couple of days. So we'll actually post a link up there for that. Plus, you can also visit all the previous ones that we've done as well. So if you did miss any of them, then please do go and have a look on there, because you'll see a recording of all the webinars that we've done so far. That'll be great. And also, once you've actually come out of this, you'll also be taken to the WebEx website where you can sign up to our future events directly as well. So, yes, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to Jane. That was really great. Thanks, everybody, for interacting and sending your questions through. So hopefully we'll see you all on LinkedIn, which will be great.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely evening.